And I'm going to go straight to Dhaka now, where Sharmeen Murshid, advisor of the interim government, is joining me now. Ms. Murshid, Sheikh Hasina and the Awami League have categorically rejected this verdict, calling it a biased and politically motivated attempt to remove the Awami League from the political landscape of the country. What specific transparent steps is the interim government taking to counter this narrative and demonstrating that the judicial process is indeed about accountability and not vendetta?
Well, it's a very interesting question. If the guilty party says the trial is not acceptable, don't you think that would be quite a commonplace reaction? That is a commonplace reaction. She has every right to say, I don't accept it. And I didn't have I didn't get the opportunity to defend myself. Let me remind you, she was invited to come and defend herself with, lawyers from anywhere in the world. So it's a question of her, courage to face what's happening in Bangladesh. So sitting there in India, she can reject it. And I don't think that, I don't feel bound to, defend my cause to her, because the proofs are so evident, so very strongly evident. Now, one of the arguments that I hear around me is that the tribunal. Now, this tribunal was set up by Sheikh Hasina herself. And the irony is, this is the very tribunal that she used to punish hundreds of people. And today, that very tribunal has judged her. So I'd just like to say that the government, the interim government, is going by the court. And
Ms. Murshid, the International Crimes Tribunal's verdict is also being seen as blatantly prejudiced. Some are even calling it travesty of justice.
I understand. I have no objection to the questions you ask, because of course you would like to understand. Travesty of justice. Now, there is a saying in my language, I don't know how much Bangla you understand, bhuter mukhe ram nam. Do you understand? Someone who has flouted every law in the book and has, committed such heinous injustice and crimes, for her to say that is almost laughable. But however, everyone has a right to fair trial. Now, she has the right to appeal. For that, she needs to come here and she needs to face the courts. Now, is she willing to do that? I'd like to ask you that question. Ask her to come and appeal. And I believe our court will welcome it. And our people will welcome it. It's not a question of whether she's guilty or not. The guilt is so profoundly out there. It has been evidenced, studied, surveyed, information has been gathered by both international and national agencies. And of course, I was out there in the street. People fell dead next to me, shot by the police, fired by the helicopter. These were not imaginations. Somebody has to take responsibility for those actions. And who takes that responsibility? The power of the moment. She was in power. And how did it happen that her police opened, a fire on young boys and girls, and who were actually having a very normal protest, campaign? And what was the protest all about? Quota. Why? Because they wanted an equal opportunity to compete for government positions, and because the quota was so highly politicized that only cadres and political cadres were getting into the government.
Ms. Murshid, my question then would be with regards to extradition, which has been demanded by the Yunus government. How do you see the diplomatic relations between India and Bangladesh in the backdrop of this?
Well, India has already made its decisions clear to us that they will not do anything to send her to Bangladesh, and I would think, of course, the people want her back, and they want her to face the courts. But I would think that this will all depend on, we have a relationship with India, we have a policy, we have an agreement that we would share in such conditions that we would extradite, as you say. But India has already made its position clear. Now, in those circumstances, we're not going to push it and demand India, we will say, send her back, let her face the trial. But if India doesn't do it, then that makes India's relationship with Bangladesh strained. And I think this is where India must sensitively evaluate its relationship with Bangladesh. Please take note that we had a very long-standing relationship with India. And I think there was great empathy. There was great, cooperations and understanding to a point. But when it came to this particular government, I think India failed to understand the, how shall I say, the emotion of our people, the historical challenges that we were facing and we were taking. Look at the elections. Look at the elections of 2014. Look at the elections of 2018. Look at the elections of 2024. India didn't observe them. The 2014 election was actually, approved by India. Whereas, before I took up this responsibility, I was an election observer. And where 50% of the parliament gets into the 50% of the Awami League members gets into the parliament without an election can never be called a rightful process. 2018, the elections happened in the middle of the night. India didn't condemn it. We always thought India to be one of the greatest democratic nations in the world. But India never supported.
All right, Sharmeen Murshid, really appreciate your time. Thank you for speaking to India Today.